We're really excited today to have Luc Swensson on our podcast. Luc was born in Boise in 2005. He, at a young age of 13, actually started a foundation where he began doing assemblies around the country. His assemblies were Imagine, Believe, and Achieve school assemblies. He has been an advocate for mental health in youth, has continued to do amazing things through his nonprofit work and his brand HOLO, which he'll talk a little bit about today on our podcast. But we're really excited to have him on today, Luc Swensson. Luc, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
This is going to be fun. We've talked about having you on for a while, and it's happening.
I know.
You're
I'm
looking
excited.
good too. You got your swag on.
Thank
your
you.
matching shirt. I don't even know where to start with you. This is like so. Our guest today is Luc Swensson. Many people might already know you in the Valley because you've been out there. How old are you now?
19.
A ripe old age of 19, and you started all this when you were 13.
13, yep. It's
Why
been
don't
a journey.
you, for our listeners, why don't you just give us a little bit of your background and history and kind of how it all started, and then there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so I started the I Love This Life Foundation at 13 years old. It comes from my background of coming from a divorced family, losing some of the most important people in my life, from bullying all throughout my elementary school to things like that, to turn it into something to show kids that no matter what's going on in their life, no matter what they're struggling with, no matter what they're going through, there's always a brighter side. There's always something that they can do to turn their negatives into a positive. And that's truly where I Love This Life started from. It's funny because I Love This Life is a song title, and music for me is something that is so important and has been a part of my life forever. And it's
So
truly
is that
just
where you got
taken-
the inspiration for the name?
It is. So I Love This Life.
Maddie, look this up. We're going to check this out. So I Love This Life. You're 13.
There it is. Yep.
So you know who's going to love this, Maddie, is Poncho. So my good buddy, Poncho Romero, I'll make sure he listens to this. He's friends with those guys.
There's such great people.
And so you've been able to meet them?
I have.
Do they know you named the foundation after them?
They do. When I originally started I Love This Life, it was something driving home, stuck in traffic, going back to Great Falls, Montana. I was talking to my dad and said, this song stuck with me. For the moment I got to be up on stage with them during that song, to see that everybody in the crowd at the Idaho State Fair, when they were singing, didn't have a care in the world. This song brought everybody together who was in that crowd to show them that, nothing in the world matters right now. We're all here in this moment together, and we truly love this life. And that was the point.
So you were well, you gotta slow down here, right? Okay, so you got to get on stage with them at the fairgrounds. And had you already started the foundation at that point?
No. So at that point, I was racing cars for kids battling pediatric cancer.
Okay.
And a big thing for me is to be able to sit in the same chair as Brian Scott, who is somebody that in my life is probably the biggest racing inspiration I ever had. He was truly my start to helping kids. Watching him do what he did with St. Jude and his cars truly inspired me to do what I wanted to do with raising money for kids and having my cars designed by kids going through battles with pediatric cancer. And it was at that point that I had lost my grandfather, who to me in my life was one of my biggest role models. Throughout the summers when I didn't have school, whenever it was, I spent so much time with him. And he was truly my biggest supporter behind my dad. And at that point, I was picked for memorial service to choose a song, and I chose a song called Best Seat in the House by a band named by LoCash. And that's when their music really stuck with me. It showed me more and more that, sure, this is a tough time, but something like this can change the path of my life. And when I had heard they were going to be in concert here in Boise, Idaho, I wanted nothing more at the age of 12 to be able to hear them live in concert, because they were truly my favorite band and still are my favorite band. And when I got to hear them, we met with the radio station, Rick and Carly, when they were at WOW 104.3, were a huge help in getting me being able to, one, meet them, two, to be on stage with them. And it was at that moment that's when I knew I wanted to do something more with I Love This Life.
I love it.
So on that car ride home, we had decided that we wanted to do something more. And I remember my dad, he said, this might not happen. They own the name I Love This Life. It's going to be entirely up to them of whether we can do it or not. And I remember we had a call with their record label at the time, and then come back and said, the guys have already talked about what you want to do. You go for it. You're 100% good to go. You can use the name. And it's just caught like wildfire ever since. I've been on stage with them a couple more times, and the times I've got to spend with them back in the buses after the shows and to hear the stories of what they've gone through has put so much inspiration behind the message that I share and showed me that there's a lot more to life than a lot of people think.
That's cool. So you start I Love This Life. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I Love This Life is a 501c3 nonprofit. I travel around the country and share my message of mental health and self-esteem with middle school and high school students all across the country. I've gotten to share some amazing stories with some amazing people at some great events. You know, it's taken me to Minnesota, Ohio, everywhere across the Pacific Northwest to share this message in really a time now when kids need something like this the most. You know, it's cool to see when we go and do these assemblies, teachers will come up to you and they'll say, well, how do you keep these kids engaged for more than an hour, right? We can't keep them engaged for more than 5 minutes in a classroom. But the biggest thing that it boils down to is that they're hearing it from a peer. When I go and share this message of mental health, of self-esteem, it's coming from a kid who's lived that experience, who is still living that experience along with them. So to be able to share this message and through mental health, self-esteem, through all the projects that I've done, whether it be the Create Your Great Journal, whether it be Camp HOLO, whether it be HOLO Brand, to be able to share this message at such a young age of when I did, and to be able to continue it now as my full-time career is something I would never trade for the world, and I'm so proud to be able to do.
That's cool. One of the things you hit on I want to follow up on is it is one thing to have an adult tell a youth something. It's a totally different thing when you have a peer, right? So you get in front of these teenagers or younger kids when you're a teenager and you're saying, hey, here's my experience, here's what I went through, and here's how I got through it, and here's some advice for you. I bet you those teachers did look at you and go, wait a minute, why are they glued to you, Luke? And why are they?
Yeah, it's cool to see after, and so many of the students who come up after the assemblies, you know, we'll stay hours afterwards to talk to kids who come up and want to share their stories or want to be able to do something like this, you know, to go share their own message and inspire kids. And the text messages I get after school assemblies. So the main piece that I've always done with Imagine, Believe, Achieve, that's my school assembly program, is that on the final slide of the presentation, I leave my personal phone number, my personal email, and I said, this is my job. I am here for you guys. I want you to make sure that no matter what you might be going through, there is always somebody who is there for you. And some of the messages that I've received from kids, you know, after the assemblies is most of the time I don't cry for things, and they have brought me to tears multiple times. Just to hear what these kids are going through and feel like they have nowhere to go. That's something that I want them to know, that there's always somewhere to go. It's just, what do you trust in the most, and what do you feel is going to bring the biggest impact and lead you on the right direction?
What are some of the biggest things that young people are facing today, or struggles?
The biggest thing, you know, that I'll hear from students is truly social media, all the things to do with vaping and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the times it's family life. You know, kind of the whole year of 2020 brought so much up in a family life that you really would never see because we had to all spend so much time together. And it was those kinds of things that are now, it's showing kids that my home life wasn't as great as I thought it was. You know, and there's still kids even to this day who are struggling with their home life. And it's sad to see because the parents don't realize how much it relates to their kid. You know, when my mom and dad divorced and they were fighting, they never realized how much it truly impacted me, how much it showed that, you know, my parents are in a good spot. I can see that, and it's now putting me in a bad spot. Yeah. But it's all these kids who are struggling with this home life and feel like they have nowhere to go, right? All they really can do is go back. They feel their safest place is school, but when something at school isn't going well, they really feel like they have no safe place. And it's the feeling of that it's just them. That's always the biggest thing we'll get from kids, is that I feel like I'm alone, right? There's nobody who's going through the same thing as me, nobody who's struggling as much as I am, and I'm alone in this fight.
So just the knowledge of, hey, you can talk about it, other people are experiencing it, what a powerful thing. Talk to me about what's the solution to social media in youth. There was do you listen to the Huberman podcast ever?
A little.
There's a podcast he had a few weeks ago, was on social media. And the guy he had on is a international expert on how it wires brains and what it does to, and it's different with young men and young women, but it was intriguing to listen to, and you sit and shake your head and you agree with it all, and then at the end of it, it's like, okay, but what do we do
Right.
about it? And he had some suggestions, but isn't that the irony of social media is it further isolates kids? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as much as social media has grown my nonprofit, has grown the foundation, has grown everything I'm able to do, there's days where I just hate it. I do. And I mean, to me, it feels like you just get stuck in this loop of constantly staring at your phone and looking at the same things over and over again. You're like, well, how can I do all of that? When in the end, some of the stuff you're probably trying to do isn't good. And really, I think the problem is I feel like there's going to be no solution, right? You could try and set age limits and people are going to find their way around that. You could try and set time limits. People are going to find their way around that. There's always going to be something. I think the biggest thing that I've always told kids who, struggle with social media is when you see a negative, post a positive. Let's try and filter out the negatives of social media by just overflowing it with positives. Making everybody see the good in people's lives than trying to more poke fun at and pull out the negatives. Being able to show them that there's so much more to life than just being a negative on social media. To be able to share a message of positivity and show people, right, the great of the world that we live in, and to be able to share that kind of messaging and lay off the negativity.
Yeah, isn't it true though? Like as you're talking, I'm just sitting here smiling because it is just such human nature to pick and look at the just. It is people, and when you're looking at it, you're like, oh wow, look, that person just said this about someone else, and it could be a tool for. I think it is a tool for positives. It's just I think that the human nature of the negatives outweighs it. What about comparison? What about you got these kids that there is isolation. I think you look at the studies that show social interaction, and I think COVID made that worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you
Absolutely.
look at the isolation of our youth, and then you have this thing that appears to be intimate and a place where you could go for interaction, but the interaction there is not authentic. Most of the time, people are posting just the positives, not the negatives. Makes people feel, but it's also predatory in a lot of ways,
Right.
and it further isolates these human interactions. Anything you talk about in your assemblies or with kids that help on that, or do you? I mean, it's such a big issue, Luke. I don't know how you really approach that one.
Yeah, and that's something that I've always found kind of difficult to approach because, I mean, for some kids, it's a great place for them to, just one, be themselves in a place where they can't feel like it, but two, there's so many negatives that can come from that. The biggest thing is that I will always tell kids is that if they're struggling, find the people that you can rely on. Don't go rely on something that you don't know what's on the other side. You don't know where that ends up going. Find somebody that you can rely on that is physical in your life and that you can lean on their shoulder and say, I need help, right? I'm not in a good spot. I need somebody to rely on to know that I'm going to be okay and make it through this. That's what I'll tell kids. And to touch on the negativity, in my assembly, I share this message and show them that I'm a teenager just like you guys. I will poke and prod at every negative when I look at myself in the mirror every day of my life. But if I can turn around one of those negatives into a positive and start seeing those positives, it can change your life. It's changed so many of the kids that I've spoken to. It's changed my life. I know it's changed millions of people across the country just to be able to look at even one positive in their day.
I love that. I'm going to look at you've started these assemblies when you were 13.
We did.
And now
Yep.
you're 19. So you've been doing them for 6 years.
Yep.
So you have a website, and it is I Love This Life Foundation. What's the actual URL?
ILoveThisLife.org.
Okay, ILoveThisLife.org. And how do people schedule with you?
So a lot of it goes through the website. Most of the time, actually, though, we will have people reach out from prior assemblies.
Okay.
And they'll reach out to me, they'll reach out to my dad, and they'll say, we want to bring him on X date at X time. And we find the time to go do it. We fill out the schedule, and we block out all of our pieces. Every school assembly has a banner that goes with it, part of my banner program that goes with the school assembly. But most of the time, it's through word of mouth. That's how we've always gotten them. But I always make sure that whoever is wanting to sign up for a school assembly, they know everything they're going to get. They know what it comes with. We pick the time and dates that work best for them, and whatever works best for them, we go with. We always kind of plan our assemblies in week-long periods. So like last year, when I was doing a lot of my assemblies were week-long times where I was in Montana or wherever I was, and they were all kind of scheduled around that time. And it's most of the time through that word of mouth, people reaching out from prior assemblies to.
Luke, this isn't normal, right?
I know.
Like, it's a pretty incredible story for a Boise kid. You're born here in Boise,
Yep.
right? To be able to do this. What do you think? What do you think sets you apart? Why do you think, at the age of 13, you went from, hey, I'm going through this hard time, to I'm going to live this life of service and giving back and helping others go through what I went through at such a young age?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the things for me was the people that I always grew up around and the people that I looked up to. I brought up Brian Scott, who brought on the biggest, cancer fundraising piece for me when it came to racing cars. And that's kind of where I don't want to just live my life to live it. I want to live my life and help people at the same time. And that's really where that kind of seed in my brain was born from. And then when my grandfather passed away to cancer, that only just sparked it even more to say, I want to go out and help more people share this story that I've gone through, of divorce, of loss, of everything that I've gone through in my life, and show them that there's a better way. Show them that they're not the only one, and that no matter what you're going through, anything is possible.
I love it. Talk about your HOLO brand. So when you came in today, you're certainly branded, ready to go, but talk a little bit about the inspiration behind that and how that fits in.
Yeah, so HOLO Brand was something that I started in 2021. And originally what I wanted it to be was, at the time we were still doing Camp HOLO, and I wanted it to be every piece of clothing that was sold through HOLO Brand. A portion of that would go into a grant that was then funded by I Love This Life to give a kid the opportunity to go to any summer camp of their choosing, whether it be sports camp, STEM camp, whatever it might be. We wanted to give them that ability because a lot of kids may never get that. But when they came out with the new 988 crisis line number and switched it from the long whatever number it was, that's when I knew that this was the calling that HOLO Brand has to take on. And when we did that, I didn't want to take it on alone because I knew my platform was only so big. I can only take this reach so far. I wanted somebody to come on with me who had, one, struggled with mental health, so they know where this message was going, but two, somebody who was willing to take this message and run with it. And we had found a great person, Tommy Mellott at Montana State, an NIL deal that we did. Was the first and the main piece of HOLO Brand. So he kind of sparked everything that goes along with what HOLO Brand is, and now he and I have carried this message of positive mental health.
So tell us a little bit more about him.
So Tommy is truly one of the greatest people I think I've ever met. He star quarterback at Montana State, my college that I went to when I lived in Montana. I didn't go to, but we went to every football game all the time. It's blue and gold runs in my blood. He is truly one of the greatest people. Born in Butte, Montana, is just an amazing human being. Does so much in the mental health space in Montana already, and truly just a phenomenal human being.
And so is that, scan up a little bit, look at that, Max Rice?
Mm-hmm. That was one. That was actually the last year that he was at Boise State. When we moved down here, I wanted somebody to come onto HOLO Brand that would make a big impact in this community.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Tommy Mellott, huge in Montana. Obviously didn't mean as much down here. So I wanted somebody to come on to take HOLO Brand to the next level in Boise and in Idaho. And that's where Max Rice came in and just took it by storm. I mean, he took this message so far across the Treasure Valley, right, to share a message of mental health, right from a time when he went through a lot going through Boise State basketball, right, being the coach's kid, going through all that, to be able to show kids that, right, you can do anything. Yeah. That's what I love with HOLO Brand and these people that we partner with in NIL, is that they've all gone through their own experiences, but they've turned it into something so great that it shows these kids all across these states that anything is possible no matter where you're going. Right, Tommy Mellott became the star quarterback. Max Rice was the star on the Boise State basketball team. You can do it. You just have to believe in yourself.
Max is they're a pretty incredible family.
They are.
Coach Rice, and we're lucky to have him here. So the HOLO, I'm looking at your hat here, Hope and Love.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit behind the branding behind the brand.
Yeah, HOLO was something that has always been a part of the nonprofit. And it's been a part of I Love This Life. We did the HOLO project with I Love This Life. We did Camp HOLO with I Love This Life. And it was The thing behind that is everything that I do, I want it to bring hope to kids, and I want everybody to start loving the life that they live, loving where they are in life, being able to go out and say that they love this life. That's what I wanted HOLO Brand to be. That's what I wanted HOLO to be in I Love This Life. And I truly think it's done that, to show people that 2 simple words can change your life: hope and love.
That's awesome. Share some stories with us of people that you've been able to help, and I know you got to probably keep it confidential, but what are some of the ways you've really touched individuals?
Yeah, a lot of the students who reach out to me and share their stories, to be able to show them that somebody else has lived the same experiences that they have. I know we've had some kids who have reached out to me that truly have said that without your assembly, I might not be here tomorrow morning. To be able to hear something like that from a kid, to know, and I've told this to so many people now, doing something like this, working in the mental health field, to know that you've helped somebody is a lot. To know that you have saved someone's life means more than anything I could ever do in life. To know that there is somebody on this earth right now because of something that I said is a feeling that, I couldn't explain to anybody. It's truly the most heartfelt thing to me to know that, I've saved someone's life. And, from the people that I've helped, just to hear back from them now, especially when we go to these assemblies, and then months later for them to come back and say, this is where I am in life now. This is what I'm doing. What you've said has turned my life around. To be able to hear that from kids, I cry every time. Yeah. I mean, it's something that, to know that these kids can now see that there is a path ahead, that they have so much more to look forward to, is just the absolute best.
Talk more about the 988 number and kind of how that fits in.
So 988 and the crisis line that goes along with it is something that, has always been a part of I Love This Life and HOLO Brand. When it was I Love This Life, it was still the really big, long number. But it's always something that I have in the assembly with HOLO Brand to let kids know that, one, it's a safe place to go if you are in true crisis. I think a lot of people have gotten that weirdly mixed up, that they think their information is going to be shared with the world if they go talk to the number. That's just not going to happen. They are there to make sure that whoever is in crisis can reel back, show themselves that it's okay. There's so much more ahead. And we leave that there to show those kids that this is a safe place to reach out to. It's one of the many tools that I use when speaking to kids. There are other groups that I've used. Teen Line out in California, I went and met with them. A mental health crisis line that is completely run by teenagers who have all been trained to do exactly what the crisis line does. If they don't feel talking to an adult, they can talk to a teenager like themselves. It's just one of those tools that I use to show kids that it's okay. There are so many resources out there for you if you need them, and they're all totally wonderful to use, and they're truly so helpful.
That's incredible. What's next, Luke? I mean, you're 19 and you've been doing it 6 years.
Yeah.
What do we got to look forward to?
The biggest thing that I have right now is a new journal project that I'm working on called the Mental Health Playbook. It is something that we're doing for student athletes, for the student athlete who doesn't think they can struggle because they're supposed to be the star football player, the star baseball player. To be the person to show them that it's okay to struggle, right? You're human just like every single one of us. It's going to happen eventually. And we have some great people coming on as a part of that journal. The journal is going to include current and former student athletes and their experiences of what they've gone through, to give these kids another view of, right, these people are at the top of the top.
There's been some dramatic stories, right?
Yes.
Of kids that have committed suicide that you go, my goodness, I had no idea that they would be struggling. Are any of those families involved with you?
We have a couple in Montana. There are a couple who have worked with us. One up on the High Line of Montana who had lost their son to suicide and decided to help us, to bring us to Chinook, Montana, to share my message, but also to help them. They do a run every year to help support, kind of what he went through, and to raise money for mental health awareness. So that's one of the families, that is still connected with me on that level. There's so many too now, especially when we go to these, a lot of the times when we go to these schools, we'll hear the stories of, they've had star athletes who, the next day are no longer with us, and they would have never had a clue. And there are so many stories like that out there that now I feel like it's so common, but it's it's something now that I hope people are finally starting to see that, mental health isn't this small little thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's not some little ball that we like to shove under the rug and say, we don't need to deal with that. It's a true thing that's impacting communities every single day of our lives. And it's something now that really needs to be brought awareness of and talked about.
It is interesting how it's changed over time, right? If you look back through just the decades that I've been involved in when I was in medicine, I do think it's more talked about. It's the stigma of it is improving. I think we got a long ways to go.
We do.
Still.
We absolutely do.
And then I think you had COVID come and, the isolation and changes. And I don't, there's COVID, but there's also just technology. There's been a lot of factors, I think, that go into the human interaction that our youth are having now. And it's just different than it was.
It is.
It's isolating. And I worry that, we just need to always be doing more and more awareness. And I love some of the things you've said today, which is, one, there are other people feeling exactly the same way you do. Just that awareness that, hey, this is common. And then what are the tools? What's out there to help? It's really remarkable what you're able to do, Luc.
Thank you.
And the lives you're able to touch. What are another question here? You have recently you've developed a leadership program titled Leadership Through Adversity. What's that?
So that was something we did for a conference here in town that I had spoken at, and it was something that I wanted to do to show these kids, who want to go out and start their own things, who want to, whether it be start their own nonprofits, start their own businesses, to show them that, right, no matter what they've gone through, you can go out and turn that into your own story and then turn that story into something great. I share, the message of what I've gone through, how I've turned it into I Love This Life and HOLO Brand, and now being able to share this message with almost 50,000 students across the country. But we do this with the hope that it shows them that, right, no matter what they're going through, no matter what's going to happen, because there will be struggles along the way, that adversity is just a small roadblock in this lifelong goal that you have, in this goal that you have to go and change the world, right? Adversity is something so small that it's so easy to step over. Sure, it will be there, but it's something that you can always overcome in whatever goal you may have.
That's awesome. Has your dad been pretty influential with you and for you?
Oh my gosh, more influential than I could have ever asked for. He's going to hate that I say this because he hates it every time I bring him up somewhere. My dad is truly the best person in the world, and I will defend that till the day he dies. My dad has changed my life in so many different ways. He's grown up a single parent raising me when he and my mom divorced. And he's worked so hard to make sure that I've been able to do everything that I wanted to do. He runs along with my crazy ideas that sometimes work, sometimes don't. He's the main reason that I got so into public speaking. All the jobs that he's done, he's been sales coaches and so many things that has given me the ability to speak with the presence that I have now. I could never thank him enough for everything that he's done for me, for the influence that he's had, and for sticking with me through everything that I've ever gone through.
Yeah, you got a special relationship with him. That's really, really cool. And I think sharing that too in the way you do is a big deal. What are before we got a few more minutes here, but as we watch kind of this next generation, what are some other things that you're hoping to teach them, and what are some things, if there are parents listening out there that have teenagers? I still do. What are some things that you may not be thinking that they're struggling with, or ways to help, or advice you would give parents or adults that may be listening to this?
Yeah, the advice that I'll give parents who reach out is to be there for your kid. A lot of the times kids feel like their parents aren't there for them. They're so wrapped up in other things that it takes the time away from them. So always be there for your kid. My dad will repeat that 20 times over to anyone who ever asks. Being there for your kid is truly what saves lives. It's what shows them that there are people in this world who care about me, right? Whether they may fully show it or not, it's there. That they know there are people who care for them. They know that there are people they can rely on. So just to always be there for your kid and for anyone in your life. is truly the greatest advice I think that I could really ever give a parent. Coming from, you know, a house where unfortunately my mom is no longer part of the picture, and it's just me and my dad, to always be there for your kid.
Yeah, that's powerful, and that, I think, the support and love and just nurturing of a parent to a kid, and that friendship that comes along. There is this time when they become teenagers, though, right, Luke?
Yep.
That usually you go from being really, really cool
Yeah.
to not so cool, and then they turn 20 or 21 again. And they're like, yeah, maybe it was me that changed.
Yeah.
You're still pretty cool, but that's the natural evolution of these kids. Well, last question, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here. But biggest life lesson you've learned in this long 19 years of life, Luke?
I think from everything that I've experienced, the biggest life lesson that I have ever learned is to enjoy every day to its fullest. You know, there's a lot of people who don't get to spend every day of their life on this earth. And to be able to go out, no matter what's going on, no matter what you're going through, go enjoy your day to its fullest. Live life the way you want to live it. If you want to go spend time with your friends, spend time with your family, go do it. Go make life what you want to make it. You know, I love this life as much as I love it. I've missed out on some opportunities, you know, in my life, being able to do something like this. I'm now fortunate that I'm able to go do things that I want to do. Obviously, in these summer months, it's kind of a downtime for us. But to be able, every single day of my life, to live life to its fullest, and to be able to go portray that to anybody else who may need to hear it, that your life is yours. Go make it what you want to be.
Love This Life. More information, lovethislife.org, right?
Yep.
And we really appreciate you. Thank you for the example over a lot of years, Luke.
Thank you.
That we've been able to kind of know you and you know, just be part of, in a small way, of what you're doing. Keep up the great work.
I will.
It's going to be fascinating to kind of follow you as you continue to just use this, I don't know, this drive that's it's a superpower, man, to go help other people. And we're certainly blessed to have you on today, and wish you the best as you go forward. Take
Thank
care.
you. And
Thanks.
thank you so much for your guys, too, for everything that you've done for me.
Well, thank you, Luke. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.